Welcome to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, the podcast for high achievers who want to stay sharp, focused, and full of energy despite their diagnosis. With your host, National Board Certified Functional Medicine Health Coach, Julie Michelson, where Julie helps you take your power back from autoimmunity. And now here's your host, Julie Michelson.
Welcome back to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast. I'm your host, Julie Michelson, and today we're joined by Tiffany Terczak of Don't Waste the Crumbs. Tiffany has helped thousands of families collectively save over $7 million by teaching them the principles from her Grocery Budget Bootcamp, and she shares many of those tips with us today. We talk about how to shop no matter your eating plan and save money. Tiffany also gives us her top 3 steps for meal planning. Join us as we explore the 2 most common excuses I hear regarding starting a whole foods anti-inflammatory diet, and you will have excuses no more. Tiffany, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thanks for having me, Julie.
I always love to start out with, how did you get to be doing what you're doing? Because I find what you do to be amazing, and it is such a service for people. You are the answer to an argument I hear all the time. So how did you, I'm pretty sure when you were younger, you didn't say, I'm going to create Don't Waste the Crumbs when I get older.
No, absolutely not. In fact, what I'm doing now has nothing to do with my college degree whatsoever, but it evolved out of a need. Met my husband, we got married, and together we had over 6 figures worth of debt. Lots of money in the hole. So we were trying to pay that off. And along the way, found out we were expecting a baby. And so we were like, kind of almost an argument that I think most moms to be's would have at some point in time is, do I go back to work or do I stay home? Just a big decision. And for us, finances was a big part of that. And so we figured, well, if I were to stay home, we got to cut some money somewhere because, money in is not equaling money out. And so we created a general budget and kind of figured what was flexible with what wasn't. Like, your mortgage is not really flexible, but how much you spend on gas, how much you drive around, or you spend on clothes is flexible. And the biggest line item that stood out to us was food. We looked at how much we were spending on food, nearly had a heart attack. And then something has got to give. So we simply capped our spending and said, let's see if we can still eat as well as we've been eating without spending more. Now, there needs to be a huge caveat there. Actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. Fast forward to another baby. And my husband says to me, hey, do you think we can eat real food? And I'm like, what are you talking about? We are eating real food. This isn't make believe. It's not pretend. I'm touching it. And he's like, no, do you think we can eat food that's grown in the ground, like carrots, apples from a tree? And the problem is we had set the food budget and I only had X amount of dollars to spend a month. And in order to get the most out of that budget, I learned how to coupon, and I shopped grocery store sales. And if it weren't for the actual store or the show of Extreme Couponer, I would have given myself that label. Like, I knew the stores inside and out. And so our pantry and our cabinets were filled with foods that weren't the best option for us, but I didn't know any better. I grew up with spaghetti coming from a box. My husband grew up on 5 acres in a country style living, and his family grew vegetables. And so when he was like, can we eat real food? It's kind of a shocker to me. And it took me a while to figure out what he was even talking about.
Sure.
I'm researching things like, what is kombucha? And you want me to make bread? Like, you can make bread, you can make yogurt. Wait, hold on. Like, worlds had completely shifted. And so dug into that research, figured out what real food was, what it wasn't, and learned how to change what we ate based on what I was learning without increasing our budget. And that was huge. It took a while. That wasn't an overnight thing by any means, but I would say about 9 months into it, we had a pretty good system. And so about that time was when we had paid off our debts. And so, the 2 kids, grocery budget, eating real food. And my husband was like, you need to start a blog. You need to tell people about this. And so after much reluctance on me, I said, you're right. I tend to be very stubborn, but I said, you're right. I started it and the rest is history. I've got an amazing community of women who want to feed their family good food and are trying to balance that against real life finances. They're having, unfortunately, some of them are choosing between, do I feed my family, healthy food, or do I pay the electric bill? And I don't think that families should have to make those types of choices. So it's my mission to empower women and moms to not have to feed their family good food and to do it affordably.
Well, I applaud your journey because it serves so many. And I hear the argument all the time. I know food allergies is a focus for you. I have kids with anaphylaxis. So I learned the whole food allergy shopping, label reading way before I was eating well either, or, because I don't have to read that many labels anymore. But learning how to read labels and find these foods, forgetting budget was a whole job in and of itself.
Yeah.
Now working with the autoimmune community, everybody I work with does some sort of an elimination diet. I am, whether it's full on AIP or, I'm always running food sensitivity panels on people. So even if it's not a true allergy, it's always a specialized diet. Even if you're just eating a healthy paleo diet, it's still a specialty diet. And it all comes down to real food, right? You're eating, you're shopping in the produce section, you're buying good proteins. And so this is the argument I hear all the time. I can't afford to eat that way. The first step I have people do, which you did as a first step as well, is see what they're really spending on their food. Most people, they come to me, well, it depends. Everybody's in a different place, but I have plenty of people that come that are eating out all the time. And they don't even consider that a food cost. And so we can find some balance there, but I know you have the systems and so many tips and tricks for people. So what are some simple steps that people can take? Maybe they're already eating well, but they want to move into something like paleo, or maybe they're not eating well yet. Maybe they're eating out of boxes and bags and know that the first step would be to start to move closer to a real food diet. Where can they start? What are some things they can do?
I highly recommend starting with what is on limits and what is off limits, because I think if you aren't clear on what you want to eliminate or what you should be avoiding, then it's a trickle down effect. If you don't know, then it's going to affect every other decision you have to make. So you really want to get sparkly clear on that. For example, if you need to avoid gluten, do you need to avoid gluten ingredients? So that means there's some education there. What ingredients contain gluten? Because there are plenty of foods that have zero gluten that you just don't realize. Like my grandma is so sweet. My daughter is actually gluten-free. And when we visit my grandma, she's like, I got gluten-free bananas. I got gluten-free, ground pork, like whatever it is, it's gluten-free. And I'm like, oh, grandma, I'm thanking her, but she just doesn't realize that a lot of real foods are naturally gluten-free. But at the same time, if you need to be certified gluten-free because of celiac or cross-contamination, like that is a whole nother thing. So you need to be really clear on what it is you're avoiding first and foremost. And then to build on what you said, it's so much more than just looking at a package. We have to remember when we go to the grocery store, our goal is to buy food. The grocery store's goal, as well as food manufacturers, their goal is for us to spend a lot of money on the food that they're making. We don't want to fall into their marketing traps. So their packages are going to be shiny. They're going to be pretty. They're going to be bold with colors and pretty graphics. And we need to put our blinders on a little bit and say, all right, I'm going to avoid this pitfall. It's a very common pitfall. And I'm just going to flip the box over or the package over, and I'm going to read the ingredient. So my recommendation is to read ingredients, not reading labels. And again, part of that is education. And I wish saving money on food, especially in terms of allergies or just food restrictions, I wish it was more cut and dry with, just follow steps 1, 2, and 3, and boom, you save all this money in your pocket. But it really boils down to, you have to know what you're buying and therefore what you shouldn't buy, because that's where your money is going to be. If you go into the grocery store and you only pay attention to the pretty package, you're going to spend more. We really should be shopping the outside edges of the store where the good dairy, the good produce, the good meat is found. You want to stay away from packages if at all possible. And there's a big old asterisk on that statement, because it's not an end all be all. Like, you could easily get dried beans in a package. You get plain rice in a package, and these are considered real foods. There's nothing added, nothing gross, but we just really want to avoid the manufacturer's marketing tactics that get us, buy this because it's healthier and it's all natural and it's non this, non that. When a lot of the terms that they're using, they're not regulated. They don't actually mean anything. They just sound good and flashy. So we need to educate ourselves on what it is we want to eat and what it is we don't want to eat.
I love that. And the marketing thing, it's I'm thinking of your sweet grandma and the marketing. There's stuff that's marketed as gluten-free that's naturally gluten-free. Like, they're just targeting, and then they're, charging an extra $1 for it. When like in nature, it's gluten-free to begin with. So
yes,
there's so much marketing involved. I love the saying, there's marketing on the front and information on the back.
Yes.
And it is so true. I would imagine, though, it was a really big shift for you when I'm thinking of, so many of the coupons, although these days there have been coupons, now at least you can get some produce coupons. But when I think of coupons, I tend to think of things we don't really need, things that I would never eat right now or advise my clients to consume.
Yeah.
So how do you shift from saving money that way to, okay, now we're intentional. We know what we're eating. We know what we're avoiding. Mm-hmm. How are we saving money doing that?
You really want to focus on the foods you're eating a lot of. So I teach this concept in my course, but the gist of it is, if you were to write down all the foods that you eat on a monthly basis, right? We're probably going to have things like chicken and rice, and I don't know, we've got some bananas in there, probably some apples, but you're also going to have things like ketchup or mustard or apple cider vinegar. So on a day-to-day basis, we're eating a lot of things like chicken and rice and apples and bananas, but we're not consuming a whole lot of mustard, like at least on gallons and gallons, right? Sure. Even if you consume a lot of mustard, you maybe go through 2 bottles of mustard. Like, that's a lot in my opinion, but
it is a lot.
So my recommendation is to focus on what you are buying a lot of and what you're eating a lot of first and foremost. So if you're going to spend money on chicken, right, we want to look for the best chicken that we can afford. If you can, we want to go the pastured route. We want to go the organic route. If you can't, chicken is still better than Doritos. So like, I'm a big proponent of that. Like, I never want someone to feel like they can't afford real food because organic seems out of reach. I'm always telling them the chicken is better than Doritos or Oreos or Pop-Tarts.
Sure.
Go the chicken route. But because we're eating more chicken, that's where we want to focus on getting the best deal. So we're going to want to look at a few different stores. Again, you don't have to spend a whole weekend shopping at 20 different places to find a good deal. Just look at the ads before you leave the house. Like, if you're going to drive to your local grocery store, what other stores are you passing on the way there? Maybe you can swing in or look at the ad, as I mentioned, before you go, because if you can save 50 cents to $1 per pound of just this one whole organic chicken, then your savings is going to add up much more quickly than if you were to try to hunt down savings on mustard. Like, the best deal you're going to get on mustard might be saving like the coupon, right? 25, 50 cents per tub that you buy,
right?
I don't know, once a quarter. So you're saving, let's round up, 50 cents every 3 months. versus if you could save a solid $1 per pound of chicken, an average of $5 a bird. And let's say you go through 2 birds a week, that's $10 a week. So times 4, that's $40 a month on just chicken. And so I always tell my students, like, imagine how much you could save if you were to multiply that times the top 10 things you eat. So I kind of recommend capping it at 10. Focus on the first top 10, because anything more than that becomes overwhelming. And then, just know where to go to get the best deal on those and stick with it for a little bit, because you'll see your savings rack up more quickly and you start getting that snowball effect that will allow you to do other advanced techniques like buying in bulk. And buying in bulk really is the first one.
Which is, yes, I guess it is an advanced technique. I guess it depends on where you live and what you do, right? So I live in Colorado. I have half a cow in my freezer because we only eat grass-fed and grass-finished beef, and we eat a good amount of it. And so that was, to me, I didn't even have to give thought. I haven't calculated. I should, because I'd be really excited, happy and proud of myself. I don't know what I saved per pound, but I know it's a lot. And
yeah, that's a great way to save money on beef, is to buy the cow. I get a lot of questions such as, well, if I only have X amount of dollars per month, let's say I only have $500 a month, do I go grocery shopping at my local Kroger or Walmart or Aldi, or do I buy the cow? Which 500 really won't put much of a dent in even a quarter of a cow. You need a bit more than that. So there's a bit of a struggle where, how do you invest in buying in bulk, whether it's bulk meat or chicken or bulk beans or rice or whatever it might be? How do you do that and still feed your family day to day? And so that's where, if we focus on our top 10, get that savings going, we can create a little bit of a snowball and create a significant, I don't want to say deficit in your budget, but maybe more margin in your budget that you can then set aside. And so it might take 6 months of focusing on just your top 10, and then the extras get set aside every month. But then at the end of those 6 months, it's, hey, now you can go buy 20 or 50 whole chickens from the farmer, or buy that quarter cow or half a cow and put it in your freezer. And you know what? Now you're not buying chicken anymore. You're not buying beef anymore. So you are, again, creating more margin, which you then invest back into your budget.
I love that. That is amazing advice. And it is, it's the long game, right? It's not, someone's not going to dig into your work and save $100 the first month, probably. But I like the thoughtfulness of, really how to plan. And again, I think there's such a void in education for people on how to save on real food, that what you're doing is amazing. I know you have a gift for listeners, Food Allergies on a Budget workbook, which is an amazing resource. And for everybody listening, food allergies, I mean, it's if you have any sensitivities, special diets, if you're thoughtful, this gift is amazing. Tell us about the workbook.
So it's designed for those who struggle with food sensitivities, allergies, restrictions, whatever it may be. My daughter, as I mentioned, is gluten-free. It's not like an official diagnosis, but she eats gluten, she gets migraines. So we're like, no gluten.
She is what we would call gluten sensitive.
Yes. So this workbook has really tactical, practical, hands-on approach as to what you can do today at the grocery store, and then some questions to help you reflect on what you're buying and whether or not you need to buy it, whether it's good for your family, whether good for your budget, whether that's good for you and your restrictions as a whole. I've learned over the years that anybody can follow like a top 10 list of whatever, and we can download those all day long and read them. But if you don't take the time to sit and reflect on how, like number 3, for example, how number 3 impacts you and what kind of changes this means for you, then you don't really walk away with anything, because, it might say, okay, you need to shop the perimeter of the store. And you're like, okay, well, what does that mean? What exactly does that mean? That means like, you need to go in and go to your right and see what is there. And like, that's the food you should be buying. Like, you really want to hit home some of these shopping tactics. And that's what the workbook is all about. It's hands-on, it's practical, very down to earth, but was designed so that your readers would walk away being able to save money and feel empowered when they go to the grocery store, instead of feeling like they're lost or overwhelmed, which happens like way too often, especially in the food allergy and food sensitivity world. We got overwhelmed. We're told you can't have this, you can't have that. And it feels like our whole world is crumbling around us. And what's funny is someone not too long ago was like, help, I can't eat dairy. What do I eat? And I'm thinking,
everything else.
Did you subsist on like cheese alone? Like, did your diet ever have anything else? So I think to take a step back and be like, it's okay, breathe, you can do this, is really, really important. So that's what the workbook helps you do, along with the practical how-to.
I love that. I find things like shop the perimeter of the store sounds so logical and so easy for me. Mm-hmm. That's all I ever do. It was very rare. I mean, yes, there are some clean staples in the middle of the store, but I can't tell you how often I go to the store and I never go in the middle. Like, those are very rare fill-ins, but it is overwhelming for people when they're not eating that way already, and they haven't been eating that way for years. That it's like, what do you mean? Like, everything I buy is in the middle of the store. Yeah. I had a client just yesterday. We were talking about, I was like, do you want to start reintroductions? He struggled so much getting, onto his elimination diet, and we stepped him into it. And now he kind of chuckled, and he's like, I don't really find it challenging to eat the way I'm eating now. I don't even know if I want to change. I feel so good. And that's what I find is, once people like get it down and it's manageable, especially with what I do for an elimination diet phase, most people are feeling so well, I have to really convince them, like, no, I want you to do the reintroductions while we're still working together, because they're like, no, I don't even want to rock the boat, but so it does. What I'm saying is, it does get easier. And so having a resource like the workbook and like you said, really making it your own versus following somebody else's list, because the follow the list method is temporary. Like, that never sticks. Ever.
Very much so. Yeah.
Wow.
It's at the end of the list and you're like, well, where's page 2? and that's not what either one of us want for our audience. We want to say, yeah, here's page 1 and now you can do it. Like,
right.
You are able to do it on
lifestyle. You are creating a lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. So you definitely take care of resistance. Number 1, I hear all the time, which is, I can't afford to eat real food, which is not true. And I want to throw into listeners, you mentioned the, organic. Sometimes you can't afford to buy organic. One resource I love for people, because if you're not, able to just buy everything organic, or just don't even see the need, is the EWG's Dirty Dozen and Clean 15 list. People are always shocked when they come to my house if I have, a conventional avocado. And I'm like, well, I don't eat the skin, And
Same things. Yeah. Or bananas.
Yeah.
Don't.
Yeah. Most of the things we peel, there are some things I have clients show up and they're so proud of themselves. They're like, I'm drinking celery juice. And I'm like, please tell me it's organic, because that's on the Dirty Dozen every year. So I'm like, there are certain things that like, I literally won't even touch unless they're organic, but you don't have to eat everything organic. And so, like you said, that's where, again, you see, what do I eat a lot of? What's on that Dirty Dozen list? Can I at least move some of those things to organic and feel better about the rest?
Oh yeah.
I love that. So we've got resistance number 1 taken care of. You teach people, this is how you do it for you. This is how you do it on a budget. This is how you do it and save money, right? Thoughtfully. Resistance number 2. Once people get that down, then they're like, I don't know what to cook. I don't know what to eat. And I know that you have a meal planning boot camp as well. So
I do.
Tell us a little bit about that, because I feel like, again, that is just, resistance number 2 is imagination, right? And planning.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Meal planning is so important. It's like, I don't know. I would like to call it a necessary evil because it's not glamorous. It is not sexy. Meal planning is boring. Nobody. I meal plan every week and I've been doing it for well over a decade, and I don't even like to meal plan, but I do it because of the benefits. You could almost say that for people who say, I hate to exercise, but I do it because of the benefits. Meal planning saves you a tremendous amount of time. It saves you a tremendous amount of money. And honestly, it saves you a lot of stress too, because we all know that dinner time is coming. I don't know why we're so surprised when all of a sudden everybody's hungry at 5 or 6 o'clock. It's like, hello, we're all hungry at the same time every day. This should not be shocked by this. So we can plan for this. So when we meal plan, the 3 big things I would say is, 1, you want to start with what you already have. Several years ago now, my husband and I remember we were standing in the kitchen and we were going to go to a church potluck, and I didn't know what to make. So I opened up the kitchen cabinets, and this was still early on in our real food day. So I had a lot of boxes of cake mixes going on. I opened up the cabinets. I'm like, oh, I have nothing to eat. We have nothing to eat. And I looked over at him. He's looking over at me like, did you really just say that out loud? And because the truth is we had lots of food to eat.
Sure.
I was just overwhelmed and I didn't know how to turn that into something. And so long story short, he said, do you think we could go a week without grocery shopping? And I'm looking around. I'm like, probably. Like, I'm like super hesitant because I'm in charge of the little kids, and, little kids can be picky, and meals were going to look weird. And so I told him that caveat. I said, dinner might look funny, but I'm sure we could make it work. And it turns out we went 33 days without going to the grocery store.
I love it.
So when you are at home and you open your pantry and your fridge and you say, I have nothing to eat, the reality is you have a whole lot more food than you think you do. And I bring that up because the food you have at home is food you have already bought. You have already spent money on this food. So if you don't eat it, one of 2 things is going to happen. Either you're going to throw it away because it goes, expires, or you're tired of looking at it or something.
Right.
And go bad, in which case you can't eat it. And in both scenarios, if you don't eat it, that is money you have wasted. You have literally given your money to somebody else and said, I will take this food, and you put the food in the trash can. That doesn't make any sense if we're trying to save money. So rule number 1 is always eat what you have. You probably, odds are you will not get your pantry down to nothing. So you don't have to worry about replenishing your pantry. That's another argument that I get in response to that is, oh, but if I eat what I have, then I have nothing left. And it's like, trust me, you're still going to have food. So
even last year, we still had food.
We did. So eat what you have. Second is to make your meal plan, and they don't have to be fancy. You don't have to make every meal, or any meal for that matter, worthy of Instagram. We're talking about healthy food on plates, food that's going to fill bellies. That's the goal. I have like a little formula for my own family right now, and that is protein, a healthy starch, and 2 vegetables. That is what all of our meals look like. And by following that formula, I can mix and match almost whatever I want. Now, I'm a food blogger and I love to cook. And so there was a season where I'm trying all the things from Pinterest, and I'm trying all the things from the magazines. And my daughter and I would sit and flip through cookbooks to plan out our meals, which you totally can do.
Yes.
But with where we are right now, I'm kind of in this awkward, busy season where I don't have that luxury. So I don't go through cookbooks. We have the same 10 or so meals. Yeah. I'm like, all right, it's a chuck roast. Do you want green salsa or red salsa? Like, that's pretty much.
I love that.
With our variation. And it's okay. It's okay to do that. So you want to write your meal plan. Again, nothing fancy. Write it out for the next 3 to 4 days. That's manageable. If 7 days freaks you out, stop at 3. And then in 3 days, do it again for another 3. And then the third tip would be you write your shopping list for exactly what you put on your meal plan. And then you go shopping with your blinders on and you buy only what's on the list. Don't buy the just in cases. Don't buy the, oh my gosh, it's a good deal. I've never seen it that low before. There's a time and there's a place for that type of shopping, but this shopping trip is not it. Just buy for your meal plan. And those 3 things alone, eat what you have, make your meal plan, shop your meal plan. If you just hit repeat
Yes.
over and over and over again, that your savings account will grow, your grocery bill will plummet, and you'll be so happy because there's not a whole lot of stress going on because you already know what's for dinner.
That's such great advice. I mean, number 3 alone, I know personally, if I walk into the grocery store and I literally only buy what's on my list, I saved money, period.
Oh, yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
And if my list was only what I was going to be using that week, I will again save more money. And this is where I get stuck with clients. My kids are grown and most of my meals, there's just 2 of us. We both eat healthy, we eat the same. I have my own limited diet based on a paleo keto lifestyle. And so, people say to me, well, what did you eat? And I'm like, well, I eat lots of vegetables, clean protein, and healthy fat. So I'm at a point where I'm not putting in a lot of time. My daughter has always loved to go through the cookbooks and find the recipes or go online and find the recipes. And that's great. She's graduating college in a couple of weeks. Shouldn't have time for that right now either.
Yeah.
So we're cooking what we know, it's, you get in this cycle of, it really does become so easy. I am not good at telling other people what to cook because I will, make a giant thing of mixed roast vegetables and I will eat off of that for a few days and just change my protein up. I mean, it doesn't have to be, and the funny part is when my friends come over who don't eat real food, they all love my food.
Yeah.
they really do. It cracks me up. I always say, well, even regular people eat it. I have that one friend who I know, if she eats it and she doesn't say what is this? Then I know it's actually really good and anybody would like it.
Yeah.
She's my Mikey. I don't know if you're old enough to remember Mikey.
I am. We were joking with our kids the other day of that exact same. He likes it. And
absolutely.
They, of course, didn't know.
No, but we get enjoyment out of it.
Yeah.
So you just gave us, if anybody just played this on repeat and took notes, they would already start not only saving so much money, but reducing their stress around food and around eating real food. But I'm going to be mean and I'm going to ask you to pick one step that listeners can take starting immediately to start to, which to me, to start to improve their health, to start to save the money, to move toward better eating.
So I am going to give a tip that's slightly tailored towards the allergy restriction realm.
Perfect.
And it's actually a mindset shift. And that is, don't try to replicate the old style of eating.
Love that.
And I say that because when you try to do that, let's take macaroni and cheese, right? I think we can all raise our hands. Macaroni and cheese is legit. It's the bomb. But when you start swapping out regular noodles for gluten-free noodles or cauliflower noodles or whatever type of new noodle there is, and real cheese for the fake cheese, and you just start making all these swaps, and it is never going to taste the same. It's just not. The ingredients are not the same. It's literally not the same food. It's like trying to make an apple taste like an orange. It's not going to happen. And you will spend a whole lot more money than you really need to. And time. And you know what? You're going to be disappointed because you're looking for this magic pill that's going to taste like what you used to eat, and it's not going to. So if you walk into this new lifestyle with that, it's a new way of eating, it's a new lifestyle, I'm not going to replicate the old, then you're going to love what you cook because it's not being held to some old standard. It's just a completely new way, and it's going to taste fresh, and it's going to taste good, and it's going to be different. So we need to know that, like you with your roasted vegetables, you can't expect roasted vegetables to taste like a bowl of spaghetti.
Right.
It's not going to, or lean chicken breast is never going to taste like a Pop-Tart. It's just not.
Thank goodness. But
yeah.
And that is such great advice. And I'll tag onto that and say, our taste buds change quickly when we stop eating processed foods. I had a client say to me once, were strawberries always this sweet? And I'm like, yeah, they were. You're just not eating all this trash anymore. Now you can taste it.
Yeah.
So as you said, your food will taste fresh, and really it becomes simpler is better. You don't need 1,000 different seasoning mixes, and you just real food really does taste good. But I love that advice because so many people do try to replicate, well, how can I make paleo mac and cheese? How can I make AIP mac and cheese? I'm like, well, there's not one thing in mac and cheese that's allowed on AIP. So I'm not sure how you think it's going to taste,
Yeah. Yeah. My husband is currently doing Wall's protocol. Very similar to
that's how I live.
AIP.
I'm a big fan of Wall's protocol.
Yeah. And my husband's a big fan of pizza. And he was like, how can we make this happen? I was like, no, babe, it's not. You're going to, RIP pizza.
Yep.
Those days have come, they have served a purpose, and they have moved on. So we need to move on too. And
I love that. And the reality is pizza is probably part of what led him to finding Wall's protocol to begin with, right?
It is. It absolutely is. And what's funny is we've learned to create other things. Like we've created almond flour tortillas that he can eat just fine.
Nice.
Tomato sauce doesn't bother him really. And he can do a little bit of real fresh mozzarella, like not the processed, pre-shredded, all the stuff added to it. So every now and then he can get something that's sort of kind of like that pizza flavor. And it brings him all these memories, but to try to just.
And that's what I tell people, go for the flavor profile.
Yes.
Just hit those reminder notes in a completely different style and way, and you will be so much happier.
Yes. Yeah. Just don't start cooking and expect it to be the same because it's just not the same. And then you're setting yourself up for failure.
That is such great advice. I really love that one. I'm going to use it. So before we wrap up, tell us where listeners can find you. And I will have all the links for everything in the show notes. But if somebody's listening and they want to pop over and find you right now, where can they find you?
Sure. So my blog is don'twastethecrumbs.com.
Love it.
We're blogging there, 4 or 5 times a week. We have over 1,000 recipes plus grocery hacks and meal plans. On Instagram, it's Don't Waste the Crumbs, and same thing on Facebook. If you're interested in my courses, my budget course is called Grocery Budget Bootcamp. And if you struggle with meal planning, that is Meal Planning Bootcamp. Both of them are .com. If they're, we'll put that, like you said, the links in the show notes. And sometimes they're open, sometimes they're closed because I like to teach personally my students. I'm not a big fan of the list. Here's a list, go fund for yourself. I'm not really a big fan of that. I like to really help them get from point A to point B. So if registration is closed, you can sign up for the wait list and then I'll let you know as soon as it is open.
I love that. Tiffany, thank you so much. You have shared so much gold with us today. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
For everyone listening, remember you can get the show notes and transcripts by visiting inspiredliving.show. I hope you had a great time and enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I will see you next week.
Thank you for listening to Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity. Did you enjoy this episode? Please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to get a transcript of this and every other episode, just head on over to inspiredliving.show or click on the link in this episode's description. There, you can also find everything we discussed in this episode, including links and information about our guest. You can even send in your questions to be answered by Julie in a future episode. That's inspiredliving.show. Until next time, this is Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, helping you take your power back.